Welcome to Solutions with Courtney Anderson. I am Courtney Anderson. Today we have a show that is all about finance. In fact, it is part of our Financial Fierceness series. And that is where we are out there and we are going to take control of our finance. We are fierce, we are assertive, we are focused, we are fired up. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. I, again, want to express to you how grateful I am that you've joined us and encourage you to go to CourtneyAnderson.com, share any feedback, be part of our community in any way that you would like. And again, just thank you for taking the time to be here. Our specific Financial Fierceness series show episode is Why Am I Always Living Paycheck to Paycheck? Even when I get salary increases. Why am I always living paycheck to paycheck, even when I get salary increases? So this is a somewhat common question, and certainly I've shared over the years. I've done a lot of corporate education, personal empowerment, keynote speaking, and I've done a lot of programs on finance. I used to do a program on mastering, money. I've done a lot of programs on different types of entrepreneurship and business issues and all kinds of different finance. And the idea here is, of course, everything that I provide in my programs and services is all about helping people surpass their goals. So, how can I be part of that process? And when we look at our money, the reason I usually like finances is because it's much simpler and easier than almost everything else I deal with. Money is money. In other words, it's mostly math. And by mostly, I mean, and this is inaccurate. So for my mathematicians and statisticians, it's frustrating, I know, but I'm going to argue it's 99% math, and then 1%, kind of random stuff happens in life. And the idea is that we're going to be proactive, we're going to plan ahead, and we're going to be in control of the money, and the money is not going to control us. The only way we're living paycheck to paycheck is that we're not in control of the money. The money's in control of us. And like anything in life, when we're not in control, it's in control of us. Or at least that's the behavior patterns we're engaged in. Whether or not, money itself obviously couldn't literally be in control of us because they're just physically, they're just either, some piece of sort of, bendable either fiber and or paper, or sometimes they're coins. And most of what we're doing a lot of times now is digital, right? So it's literally just a digit that is just written down. So that itself can't control us as humans because it doesn't have the power to. What happens is we're not planning, we're not thinking ahead, we're not proactive, and then because of that we're just reactive. And then when that happens, then we say I'm living paycheck to paycheck, I don't have any money. And I frequently would hear at these conferences, especially I used to do a lot of these, right, on mastering your money and things of this nature. People would say, it's just, I'll never win. I'll never win. I've gotten a better job. I was promoted. I, went back and, got a certain certification and I don't have any money. I never have any money. Okay. Those are all symptoms of we're looking at our finances backwards. Okay. So I'm going to say a couple of things here at the outset as we move through our episode, and I'm going to try to explain my position and why I'm going to make these assertions. Of course, as always, you are the expert on your own life, and so you're going to know what's right for you. One of the things I want to talk about is the idea of budgeting. One of the things that you hear people say, oh, I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I don't understand. I got a pay raise or I got a new job, and I'm still broke. I just don't understand it. I made a salary increase, but it didn't make any difference. And then often what you'll hear in terms of advice is, well, you just need to budget better. I'm going to not agree with that, and here's why. Okay, budgets are where you basically look at your stuff, right? A budget, I'm going to look and see how much stuff do I have in terms of like bills, right? Do I have a utility bill? Do I have a water bill? Do I have an internet bill? Do I have a mortgage bill or rent bill? That's stuff. That's stuff I owe. How much stuff do I have coming in, or how much stuff do I already have, right? Do I have any assets? Do I have money in the bank? Do I have my income from my job or my business? What's going on? A budget? I'm just writing down all my stuff. And the idea here is you write down all your stuff and then you'll be able to plan better, because instead of just sort of sitting around thinking, yeah, I know I got that one check coming in from that one client, and I know I have that one bill. I'm not really sure what day it is. That you sort of sit down and look at the big picture. It's sort of the difference. This isn't a great analogy. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's sort of like, and I do this sometimes when I'm not taking care of my health like I should. So I'm not really focusing on my healthy eating. I'm not focusing on my exercise and proper nutrition. What I'll do when I'm doing that, because I know I'm not eating healthy. I know for myself, sometimes emotionally, when I get overwhelmed with emotion, I will sometimes be disrespectful to myself, and I will eat large amounts of carbs, usually sweet carbs. So when I say carbohydrates, carbs, I mean like donuts and things like that. Now I know that a donut or, is fine, right? And in moderation, depending on your health and your other underlying medical conditions. A box of donuts, probably not healthy. It's a lot of calories. It's also prevented you from eating the rest of your balanced meal. But I'll do this sometimes emotionally, right? Because I'm overwhelmed and it's a negative thing. So I feel bad, and then I know I'm going to just go and have that sugar rush, and then I'll do that. And then what I'll do is I won't get on the scale. Not that I won't get on the scale, that moment. But I mean, I really will avoid the scale for however long that I've been eating and not exercising, because I'll know that the physical consequence of the math is more likely than not it's going to be measurable, and I don't want to see it. So I put my head in the sand like an ostrich, right? You know, hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. If I don't see the number on the scale, then it's much easier to pretend in my head like, what? That doesn't exist because I didn't see it, right? My budget is the same way. If I don't see it and I'm just sort of like, well, there's going to be money coming in and there's money going out, I'm not making good choices. And in fact, I'm often, just like if I'm eating unhealthy, and then I'm intentionally trying to trick myself and pretend like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, because I'm not looking on the scale to see what the consequence is. And depending on your conditions, you're not monitoring your cholesterol or whatever may be, part of your health situation. It's just a way of me being dishonest to myself and self-destructive. I'm just sharing an anecdote. So with finances and everything else, health, all these decisions, if you sit there and you don't get good data and information, you're not going to make good choices in terms of outcomes, right? So my data and information in my health would come from, looking at, the content of the foods I'm eating, looking at my overall daily plan or nutrition, or even just paying a little bit of attention when I'm putting in my mouth, looking at my exercise, and then looking at the scale or, the tape measure, or whatever way it is that you kind of get an assessment of, okay, how am I doing, right? Body fat or whatever. I don't care. I'm just using the scale as an example because it's one thing I use that's at my house, like in my bathroom or whatever. So it's a way for me to be dishonest, self-sabotaging, and self-destructive. With your finances, many people do a similar thing. I'm just not going to put a budget or look at the budget, or they'll do this. They'll go make a budget, right? So they'll go make a budget and they'll start and they'll say, okay, I'll put down my gross income. Because most of the times when you go to a bank or a lender and they start talking to you about, you say, oh, I want to get a car and I want to borrow money. And they'll start saying, okay, well, tell us what your gross monthly income is. Now, gross is the total of everything that you get before you take any deductions out. So if you have a job, you're an employee, and you say, oh, my gross income is, $3,500 a month, then that's nice. I don't know how helpful that is when building your budget, because you're not getting $3,500 a month, because you have to take out of that the taxes, which are usually withheld for you as an employee, but they actually are in most instances. Any other federal or state systems that you are required to pay into, any other employer-specific programs, health insurance, anything else. So one thing that people do with the budget is they actually will do it. They'll sit down and say, okay, here's my gross number, which you're often advised to use, right? Like, what's the total of everything? And then you'll put it on paper and then you'll put down some of your bills. Okay, well, yeah, let me look. Okay, my bill for my water last month was this, or my bill for my, um, insurance for my car was this. And you put that down. And then on paper, as long as you have something left over, right? So let's say it was $3,500, and then you put all your bills down, and your bills were, um, you know, $2,200. Then a lot of people will say, "Look, I'm doing well. I've got $1,300 a month left over to do, whatever I want, treat myself to a nice meal or whatever." Okay. The challenge with the budget is this. A lot of times we're using numbers that aren't based in real life. So I understand that gross income is important, and it's something that lenders will ask for because it helps them get a big picture. You should have it, too. But I say after you write that number down, then cross that number through or underline it, and then go to the next line and write down the real net number that you have. What's your take home pay? Because that's what you can pay bills with. You can't pay bills with money you never actually get. That's already reallocated and redirected before it hits your direct deposit or your paycheck. So I'd say that. The other thing is often with the budget, the budget's like an ideal. So, you do it, oh, okay, my bills are 2,200. Okay. Now, see, I have $1,300 left over. Yeah, if you have nothing else that goes wrong. No washing machine breaks, nobody's got to go to the veterinarian, your kids don't need new, money for a field trip. You don't have to buy new shoes because the shoes you're wearing broke. Your car doesn't need to get repaired. Like, as long as nothing goes wrong. And how often in life do you have nothing that goes wrong? Just forever. You don't. So one of the things I'm saying about the budget is I think it gives people a false sense of assurance when the reality is you're absolutely positively not where you need to be in terms of your finances. And that's why no matter how much more money you make, you stay in the same outcome, paycheck to paycheck, not saving a lot, not moving toward being independently, financially independent. And of course, financial independence is that period that we get to in our life. Hopefully, if it's my goal and the goal of many people that I work with, is your goal is to be financially independent. That means that all the things you own, all your stuff, is going to generate enough income on its own so that it pays all of your bills. And then that way, even if you don't work or something happens, you're not worried about money because there's enough money coming in from the stuff you own to pay the stuff you owe. Stuff you own might be, real estate. It might be investments. It might be stock or bonds. It might be just interest. But you need to own stuff that generates income. And that income at some point will pay your bills. And then you're financially independent. And if you work or don't work or have a business or don't have a business or whatever, it doesn't matter to you because you already have the money that comes in all the time to pay all your bills, and ideally a little extra because the money that you have, either your assets should be either holding value or ideally appreciating, meaning they appreciate. It means I bought it for one amount and then over time it's worth more money. So if I bought a house, in 1999 for $95,000, hopefully in 2019 it's worth more money than 95,000. Maybe it's worth 195,000. Maybe it's worth 495,000. I mean, depends on the local market, depends on the pricing in that area. But an appreciation, it's worth more than I paid for it. That's awesome. And the other thing is that something either generates income, right? Like money itself. I've done other programs on this where we talk about that. How do I, financial independence and things of this nature. My argument with the budget is this. The numbers are usually just ideal and they're not based in reality. And the other thing is it also makes people think I can spend more than I am able to. If you make more money, the first thing you need to do is go cut your bills. If you make more money, if a salary increase, I don't care if it was a 2%, cost of living, or you got 20% more and you got a new job, I don't care. I don't care if it's $1 or 10 cents. The more that you make, you must immediately go and start cutting bills. Now, this is the opposite of what most people do. Most people say, I have a budget and I made $3,500 a month, but now I make $4,200 a month. So I can go out and increase and get, a bigger television channel package. Maybe I had a television channel package from a satellite or a cable provider, and before I only would pay, $40 a month. But now I make a lot more money, right? So now I'm going to go out there and get the big package that I always wanted that has every, premium channel, and I can see all the premium shows, and I'm going to go from $40 a month to $80 a month. I have it. What's an extra $40, right? I'm making hundreds of dollars more a month, right? I can afford it. Somebody gets a salary increase and they say, oh my goodness, well, now that old car I have that's 9 years old, now I can go get a newer car. Or even in my mind, we have another show on this, even worse, let's say I can get a new car, which is incredibly expensive. Because when you buy a car, unless it's a very rare vehicle, the moment you buy a new car and drive it off of the dealer's lot, it already is worth less than when you paid what you paid for it, even though it was probably like 10 minutes ago. It depreciates. Some collector's items, of course, appreciate or at least maintain their value, but you wouldn't be buying those on just an average dealer lot. Now, if you go and you buy a pre-owned car, maybe you get a car that's, 2 years old, it's still newer, right? But it's not going to depreciate anywhere near as much as that brand new car. So people who rely on the budget, my first advice is that's a bad idea. That's part of why you live paycheck to paycheck, because you keep putting your budget down and keep looking at the numbers and say it should work out awesome. Yeah, ideally it should. With your gross or maybe your net, but you're not putting in any leeway for all the things that happen. And you're also forgetting that many of us, I shared my embarrassing, sad truth of being sometimes, it depends on the year, honestly. Sometimes I go years and I don't eat inappropriately or excessively to where my stomach hurts, just, carbs with sugar on it. But sometimes I have a very bad period and I might do that, a couple of times. And the thing with budgets and money is that you have to ask yourself, are you being, somewhat dishonest? And I would argue that most people are, so they're usually not as effective as they could be. And some people, like I said, I will sometimes be self-abusive and disrespectful to myself with not eating healthy excessively. Having a donut or whatever is fine, but unless you have some sort of medical condition. But having a whole bunch of them till your stomach hurts, come on. That's something that I did as a little kid, and my grandmothers would say, "Why are what are you doing? You're making yourself sick." And to do that as an adult is the same. It's really poor choices. But I'll do it almost entirely emotionally when something really stressful or horrible happens. Some people do that with money, so they'll feel bad and they won't go and eat something that's self-destructive to the point where they're sick. They'll instead think, oh, well, I should get myself a treat. Why don't I get myself some new shoes or a new, whatever piece of, something for the house and you start spending little pieces here and there. And in your head, many people will think, oh, it's just $40, right? It's like, hey, I got more income, my salary increased, so I went ahead and I added a little bit more to my television package, or I added a little bit more to my premium internet service, right? I went ahead and got a newer car. What's the big deal, right? I make more money. The problem is that you're doing the wrong thing. You need to go through and cut your bills, cut them down. I call this, my money day, and I used to do it probably every other month, like. And what I mean is this: I'll sit and I'll get all of my bills, and I'm talking your have to bills, like your utilities, and I'm trying to aim to keep my utilities, in single digits of my total monthly income. I'm self-employed, and I also have employment income. So my income is variable, right? But I try to go on the lowest income possible that I could earn. And I want to keep my utilities and everything down to a single digit, right? So 2% or 5% or something of my total income, or less, ideally, should go on my utilities. And my utilities are stuff you have to pay if you want to have a comfortable life. So I need electricity, I need water, I need, natural gas in some parts of the world. I need, for my work, I really do need internet access. Now, there's other stuff I just want. That's not a requirement, but some people, I want a television, whether it's cable or satellite, or I'm going to pay for a Netflix or something like that, or Amazon on demand where I can watch streaming, whatever it is you're paying for, okay? When I say the money day is every other month, I used to stick to the schedule. I've been a little inconsistent lately, but I go through all of those bills that I have to, and then I'll go through the ones that I sort of just want, and I'll just start cutting. And I'll call all those utilities and I'll tell them that I can't afford this, whatever it is. Oh, the cell phone bill. Okay. So I'll go through and I'll start calling, my insurance company. I call everybody on the list. I do this. I used to do it religiously every other month. Now I'm a little bit more inconsistent because I'm not making excuses. I've just been working and starting some new projects, but I'm getting back on schedule. So when I do Money Day, I go through all the bills and I call every single utility and I tell them I can't afford this. It's too expensive. And then I'll tell them, what can you do, or ask them. So I always ask really politely. And I'm emotional because I do need to save more money. Everyone does. Who knows what horrible thing could happen or great thing could happen. And of course, my goal is to attain and maintain financial independence. And no matter where I am in that spectrum, it doesn't hurt to have a little, savings extra. A penny saved, a penny earned, right? And so I go through my utilities and I call them and I say, this is just too high. I can't afford this. I do the opposite of what a lot of people do when they say, I got more money and I'm still paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, because you increased your bills, you increased your packages at utilities. You must call your utilities. And I'll go one by one. So with the electrical providers, and or natural gas, I will call them and tell them I can't afford this. It's too high. What other alternatives are there? So sometimes they'll say, okay, well, the alternative would be that instead of your bill being based only on what you use that month, which some months it's going to be higher depending on if it's hot or cold or whatever. We can put you on a program where every month you pay the same amount of money. And that makes it the equal billing program. So I always am on those to begin with because it's easier to budget. Why? I know people, again, the budgeting where I said I'm not really into budgeting, because often we're with bad numbers. People do that all the time. They look at their bill and say, oh, my bill was $40 this month. Well, yeah, but that's because it was a low use month. What are you going to do when it gets cold or hot or whatever? And that may double or triple. So why did you build that in there? You need to get the number that it is every month. I've already done that on every bill when I set it up. But when I go through my Money Day and I go through each one and I call the provider and I say, I cannot afford this. What can you do to help me? And then usually they'll say, well, you're on the cheapest program. And then I'll say, well, is there just anything? It's just so expensive. Often not often, almost always I've researched this. So many times with your utilities, natural gas especially, they will have different programs where you pay a different amount of money per whatever energy unit that you're using. Electrical providers sometimes have these too, right? So you need to call and ask them. What are the different alternative programs? This is so expensive. Now, some people would say to me, well, this doesn't make any sense. Why are you doing this? Right? If you already can afford to pay, why are you calling and cutting everything? Here's the deal. A penny saved is a penny earned. My goal is to have as much stuff that I own that generates so much income so that I don't have to be stressed or worried or, unless there's a total catastrophe in the entire global situation where if I work, great. If I make some money, great. If I don't, fine. Because I already have money that comes in off of the stuff I own that pays for things. That's the lifestyle. It's much less stress-free. To maintain and make my lifestyle better, I'm going to go keep cutting those bills. So I said every other month. Now, sometimes I would break it up because I didn't want to call every utility every other month. So I might take like a third of the list and do it one Money Day, and then, then the next Money Day I do the next third, the next Money Day, next third, and then I just rotate back through those. And I just call all of them. And sometimes I'm almost always really happy because there's some sort of a deal or a special, especially when you tell people, now some of these providers, and depending on where you live, are monopolies or pretty close to it. Meaning there is no other competitor I can go to. So that's the worst case scenario because it gives I don't have any leverage to say, well, I'm going to quit your utility unless I just literally am going to live without, electricity or natural gas, which some people do. Although there's always some alternative for something. I know for myself right now, I'm investigating and then going to move forward with solar energy, in my home, right? When there's not a monopoly, when there's just one other competitor in town, right? So if I call the satellite or the cable television place and I say to them, it's just too expensive. I actually just did this the other day. I did my regular spiel, and I always operate from that really, position of weakness and just, I need help, which is true. So I don't come in and aggressively like, this bill is too much. What can you do? I can't believe it. I'm sick of how much you guys charge. That is totally useless. The customer service person on the phone has a lot of power. Okay. And if they are my enemy, I'm not going to really get the best outcome. I'm not saying if I'm friendly and ask them timidly for help that it's going to magically cut my bill in half. That doesn't happen. But what I'm saying is they're at least listening. If you're attack and aggressive at people, they're not really they're barely listening to you because they want to tune it out because nobody likes to be screamed at and insulted and stuff. So I tell people, hey, the truth. I've got to cut this bill. It's too much. And so I just did this with the provider. And so often, and because there are other options, right? Even if there's not another cable provider, there's often in most parts of the U.S. and many other countries, there's maybe a satellite provider. So I can say to them, well, I have to go to satellite if I can't afford this. So I do all this, and then if I say, well, I'm gonna have to leave, and then usually those companies will say, oh, okay, well, we have a department, and it's some sort of retention department or something, and it's the place you go when you say you're canceling, and then the people there usually are trained to like try to make you not quit. That's retain you, right? Retention. And so when I go to that department, I just tell the same story. Oh, I don't know if you can help me, but this bill is so high. What can I do? I just really hate to have to cancel my service. And then sometimes when I did just recently, it took me probably 30 minutes. But I'll tell you what though, at the end of it, we reorganized whatever, because sometimes with the providers now, they like to do packages. So instead of them doing just your television, they'll also try to offer you a phone service or internet service or something with one company, which is convenient, which is true, but also it gives them the ability to lock you into multiple services and also make more money off of you, which is not a bad thing if it's fair. But anyway, so I called, I did all this. Bottom line, when I got off the phone, we reorganized everything, and I saved $70 a month on just that one bill. Awesome. So when I go through my money day, I usually aim for several $100s in savings. Now, sometimes it's not going to happen. Sometimes it's just not enough savings. I mean, it's just a little bit here and there, a little bit here and there. One of my providers, I called on my other money day, the same day I called that provider. I only went down $10, but you know what? It adds up, right? $10 over 12 months, $120 in my pocket. So the key is ask yourself, what's the bare minimum that you, quote, need? And sometimes you really do. Like if you live in a climate where you can't just live outside, when you really might need heat or air conditioning, then you got to ask yourself what's the minimum, and then ask the providers, talk to them, and then say to them, hey, financially this is just very expensive. I'm just really worried I can't afford it. Are there any other programs? What's the lowest cost program? Be very explicit with them. Is there some other program like a restricted program where I only use my phone at certain hours or my electricity at certain hours, because I want to know about that program. Now, sometimes they'll have programs that you have to qualify by being, on assistance, or have some sort of disability or something, which is fine. Of course, that's entitled for people who have constraints on their finances. I'm not going to get on that program. Obviously, I'm not, and I'm not asking about that, but I know because usually they do have multiple pricing options and multiple use options. You have to call. Now, when I do my money day, I plan. I might say, okay, I'm going to take 3 hours. And you might say, well, I can't take 3 hours. I'm at work. I have stuff to do. Good. Then you're going to do it when you come home, or you're going to do it on Saturday. Okay, but you've got to plan this, or maybe just take your lunch. Maybe you have 45 minutes, but you need to take all 45 minutes and get on that phone. You have got to start lowering those bills. Let's say you do it and you come out of it and you save $220 a month. That's great. Now that might be with 8 utilities, $10 here and a little bit there, but it adds up. And I'm telling you, you're not going to even notice it. A lot of the things that people are convinced, I made more money, I deserve the full, most expensive, television package on, say, satellite or cable. I've never bought one of those or paid for that. It's too much stuff on there. It's too expensive. If there's something you really love, like sports or certain types of movies, buy that one channel and ask them what kind of specials they have. And then monitor, because a lot of those specials have, they're a special for 6 months or some kind of promotional thing. You got to watch that. Every time I do money day and I'm cutting all those bills and I'm getting some sort of special low price or whatever, I note in my calendar when that is going to end. And then I put a note to check on that a month before it ends to see. And then when I call back and say, I've been on this special pricing, but I see my special is going to end next month. What can you do to help me? Because I just can't pay another dollar. Is there any other special? So be proactive, because what the organizations, and it's not at all unethical, I don't think, because it's all explained, but what they know is a lot of people don't monitor all this stuff, and then you had a great price for a few months, and then you quit paying attention, and then the price jumped up, went up 30% or something, and again, what people get in trouble with is you keep thinking I made more money, so I can just get more stuff. No, you can't. You must have less stuff. Because your goal is a couple of things, and I have a whole bunch of the couple of programs we did about this. Part of it is your assets and your stuff, so that generates money, right? The other part is you have to try to get your credit as high as your credit score possibly can be, because then that's another line of defense if something bad happens and you need money. Because you have really great credit, then great credit, and you have assets, you're in a great position. And then, if something horrible happens, you can start selling assets to get money. You could, if you had to, worst case scenario, you could borrow money because you have really great credit. And because you have really great credit, of course, they will offer you all kinds of banks and savings and loans will offer you all types of great deals and really low interest or zero interest and all this kind of stuff. Zero interest is great because then it's like, as long as you pay it back under the terms, you haven't had to pay anything for it. You borrowed $1, you paid back $1. You must not get caught up in the budget hysteria. Budgets are great as a snapshot. They're not necessarily going to be helpful for you every day unless you have the discipline. They have a lot of these programs now that you put on your smartphone. And then every time that you're like, oh, I'm going to buy an extra pair of shoes, or I'm going to go to get a fancy cup of coffee, you put it in there and then it will monitor in real time. That's actually the best way to do this, right? So it's not even so much that you went and created the budget, but you're using that to monitor every penny that you spend, which is ideally similar to what I talked about when I use my eating and everything. Ideally, you should be monitoring, not in an unhealthy way, but like, okay, what do I know is a healthy range of things for me to eat? And I wanted a donut or two, great, I had them, and so that's okay. I just have to make sure that I'm balancing with everything I'm eating. Monitoring it in real time is great. Just a lot of people don't have the disciplines for that, and they don't have the sort of tenacity to make that stick. You'll sort of start it a little bit and then, I got other stuff to do. And I don't want to have to go enter every time I buy something in my little budget program on my smartphone, or my tablet or my computer or whatever, or even write down a piece of paper. That's fine if you can do that, but many people can't. So my point is then start with your net money of how much you have, and you need to go through on your money day and you must cut your bills. You need to call every single one of those utilities. Other stuff that you're spending money on, you need to look around and see, is there something that maybe that's come along that's a better price alternative? One of the things I realized and got really happy years ago, I don't remember how many years ago now, when they started to have internet phone that went over the internet, I had Vonage, which is a big earlier player in that market. But it still costs some money each month. Now, in the last couple of years, they've come up with products that put your phone, you can plug into your internet access and or a computer, and you can still similar use the phone. And they have some of those now where you don't pay anything every month, or maybe you just pay $1 or $2 a month. You buy a device, you plug it in, you can talk over your internet and on a phone, and you don't pay anything. Or maybe you just say, forget that, I'll just talk on my computer. I'll Skype people, or use another similar service. I'm saying there's ways to cut money and cut. And the more that you cut and the lower your bills are, because you want to get that percentage as low as you can of your net income, as low as you can for those utilities. Because remember, your goal with financial independence is to get your income that's just sort of automatically generated by your assets and to pay your bare minimum bills, right? So the lower your bare minimum bills, the lower the number is, the easier your life is. You must go through and do your version of money day and cut your bills. You make more money, great. That means you're going to go ahead and have lower bills. The lower your bills are, the better it puts you in a position to get the highest possible credit score. Credit score, of course, depending on a lot of things. You always want to pay all your bills on time, early and on time, and you want to have a diversity of different types of bills, meaning ideally at some point you'd like to have something you've borrowed over a longer period of time for something you've borrowed on a short-term period. If you're going to use a credit card, which in many instances can be a good idea, and again, I know people totally disagree with this, but in many instances they can, you must ideally not pay interest. Remember, interest is that thing that we just give somebody else our free money. We want to earn interest on our money, if that's something that's culturally and appropriate, acceptable for us, because that's part of that thing where we get financial independence, where our money just makes us money, often by interest or through investments. But I want to earn interest if this is something I'm comfortable with. I do not want to pay interest, and I don't care who you are, you don't want to pay interest. That's why the 0% deals and everything. You see that with automobiles a lot in the U.S. and other parts of the world. But the only people who get those really great deals that are 0% and all that kind of stuff are people who have really awesome credit. You must focus on your credit as much as you focus on cash, if not slightly more, because your credit record is much more permanent in some ways, right? In the U.S., Some things on your credit record can be there up to 10 years, like anything that's a judgment, like a bankruptcy or foreclosure. And every other negative mark that's on your credit can be there up to 7 years. That's a long time, right? And those things that are on there that are negative are going to push your number down, which makes it harder for you to get those no interest or low interest or great terms that you want. Okay, so the answer to why am I always living paycheck to paycheck even when I get a salary increase? One, your input in terms of your budget is usually not accurate. You need to get your net income, and you need to look at the lowest possible percentage of that you can spend on your bare minimum bills. And I mean, of course, have whatever utilities to be comfortable. You're not going to watch all those channels. Okay, I guarantee it. What's the realistic internet thing? And things like cell phones, oh my gosh. They have some relatively new products, and I'll put some links in the show notes, which I just recently switched to. So I had a cell phone bill that was, and this is insane. It was around $100. I was so angry about how high this bill was, but there's so few competitors, and they were all very similar. Well, they have these new companies that have entered into the market that basically they take the same large cell phone provider like a Sprint or AT&T or whatever, and they use their network, right? Because there's only so many cell towers and everything. But then they turn around and resell that same carrier's product through their own sort of cheaper version. And so I switched to one of these products where my cell phone bill went from right around $100 to literally $15. Some months it's even lower. Some months it's like $9, $12. Because I went to a system that charges you for how many text messages you send and how many call minutes you use, and you buy little buckets of stuff. So the service I'm using, I'll put in the show notes. I'll just mention it. It's Ting, Ting, Ting. Now, I don't know. This is a relatively new company. At first, I was like, "Will this work?" But it's literally my same smartphone that I had before with the big company, and it's the same company's cell tower and call quality and everything. It just is limiting me. So now all those big carriers, cell phones in the U.S. have gone to these all you can eat programs, right? So unlimited text, unlimited data, unlimited call. Actually, the data is the one that many of them are changing. But do I use unlimited text? Do I use unlimited call minutes? I don't, do I use that? No, I do not. So for me, because I don't use that unlimited, when I went and bought little packages of what I actually do use, I saved like $100 almost a month on that bill. I went from around $100 to like $15 or less. Awesome. And it meets my needs. So you have to go through ruthlessly and remember every dollar, every penny, every nickel. All right? Every euro that you give to some other bill is money that basically is taken away from you. And it's slowing you down for your financial independence, or it's putting your financial independence you already have in potential risk. You must be really honest with yourself. That to me is where you need to put your energy. Then backwards from that, when your bills are really, really low, and you're going to go do this on your own schedule, as much as you can, your money days, get more money, low, you need to pay stuff off. Having a car note actually helps your credit to a certain degree, having a variety of bills. But you want to go get the most reasonably priced car. I have another program about this, about buying cars. And you want to pay it off as quickly as you can. And then you want to be realistic about your insurance and all the coverage you have so that your bills are reasonable. If you have a car, if you live somewhere you don't need a car, great. But many people, especially in many parts of the world, they don't have public transportation set up to allow you to be able to live and shop and eat and everything in many parts of the world. You must be ruthless about your money. You earn that money, right? I don't care if it was whatever it is that your net is that month, you earned that. Either you earned it through your job where you had to go work those hours or work that time at that employment, or you earned it through your business, but you earned it. Don't you give that money away. Don't you let those other bills take that money away. Everyone that you can do to get that bill as low as you can. Be realistic with yourself. You are getting closer and closer to either attaining or maintaining for the rest of your life that financial independence where you're not worried about money. You have more than you need. Trust me. So the reason that you had to have those problems paycheck to paycheck is your salary increase, people spend more. You can never spend more. You must constantly go and spend less. You must constantly do that. How much can I do to get a better deal? How much can I save? Then my advice would be take your net number. And also then if you want to have little treats for yourself and know, every once in a while I'd still get myself something nice or a fancy cup of coffee or whatever, that's fine, but you need to budget it. Not necessarily, like I said, the budget where you have the fantasy numbers, but literally say, and the old envelope system is great, right? Where you literally put cash in an envelope because it's much It's much more visual. I put $20 in my bag or my wallet, and I could spend that day or week or whatever your parameter is on something as a treat. And when it's gone, it's gone. I'm not going to get any more treats for whatever the rest of the day or month or week or whatever your budget is. It actually works to your benefit, right? The problem, not problem, but the challenge sometimes with electronic money, credit card, debit card, using your cell phone to pay whatever, it's kind of like you're not really tangibly touching it and seeing it. It's just digits, and it makes it sometimes easier for people to spend more money, which is why often it's a benefit to businesses, right? So I want you to think about this. This is a fierce battle for your money. Every single bit of your money counts. Do not give anybody else any more money except for what absolutely positively must be done. When you call to do your money day and cut your bills, remember, positive, a little bit of weakness. Ask for people to help you and budget your time, because it's going to take time, because you're going to have to talk. They're going to look up what your record is, and be grateful and appreciative. And I don't care if you save $2. Put that down as a plus. You just earned $2. You're $2 closer to either attaining or maintaining your financial independence, and your life is moving in the right direction. And trust me, when you do this, the stuff that moved your, maybe, oh, I'm not going to get the biggest plan for that cable or whatever, you don't even notice it. There's stuff you spend money on right now, I guarantee, when you do your money day, that you're going to be shocked that you're wasting money on that. And there's always potentially something new that'll come up, like I share with cell phones or physical that used to be landline phones. There's new technology. There's always going to be something potentially come up and disrupt it and make it at least temporarily even cheaper. But your big picture on this, okay? So we're not going to live paycheck to paycheck, because my bills are going to be so low. I'm saving, saving, saving. Every dollar I save, then if something bad happens, then I'm not even looking at my paycheck. I'm going to go to my savings. They call that your emergency fund, right? And now I'm not even worried, right? Oh my God, my refrigerator broke. That's okay. I just go to my emergency fund. There was the money right there. I'm not charging any money. I'm not borrowing any money. I already had it. It's nothing to do with my paycheck, so it doesn't impact my paycheck. Everything's great. You see? All right. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, it really is appreciated. I know that there's so many things that you could have done with your time, but yet you shared it with me, and I really, really thank you. I encourage you, as always, to come to CourtneyAnderson.com for any feedback, suggestions, or just to join in our community. Thank you.